Okay, so here we are with another episode of Women in Electronics podcast leader and highlight radio program. So I am so honored here today to be talking to an industry colleague, Mr. Don Akery, CEO of Waldom. How are you doing today, Don?
I'm doing great. Getting the year started off already. It's already busy.
Already busy, and that's a good thing. That's a good sign. Okay, well, I will just get into the interview because I have so many things I want to talk to you about, and really just to set the stage of, you have been in this industry for a long time. You have a lot of contacts, you have a lot of influence, and first to start off with, why Waldom? What does Waldom do? And just paint the picture for us, Don.
Yeah. Yeah, I got asked that question a lot last year when I made the move, and I've said it many times. I had one of the best jobs in the industry for one of the best companies in the industry at TTI. I was running the Americas business and part of the corporate staff, so it's not like there was anything wrong there at all. It was, like I said, it was a great job, one of the best in the industry, with a great company owned by Berkshire Hathaway. What more could you ask for? But from a career aspiration standpoint, I always had the aspiration to run a business on my own, to be CEO. And so the opportunity came around, and I will tell you that when Waldom recruiters reached out, I blew them off for quite a few months. I didn't even know who it was, and then when I did, I kept blowing them off. But they were persistent and said, you need to listen, you need to understand the model, which I did. This is a much smaller company. It's a couple of 100 million. So it's not a small company, but it's also not as large as a TTI. But once I got into the business model, it was very, I'll say, appealing and exciting. I also felt like my background and experience in the industry gave me the opportunity that I thought I could make a difference in taking the business to the next level, which is obviously what they were recruiting for, looking for a leader for the business. Waldom is a very unique model. It does not compete against the distributors. We only sell to distributors. This business has been around for 75 years. It's one of the older businesses in our industry. Was not very big up until the past 10, 12 years. But it always has only been in, master distribution or being the distributor's distributor. So we've never had aspirations in order to take it out and sell to the general public. We don't have the infrastructure built that way. So this model, to me, adds quite a bit to the industry. And you may say, well, how's that done? We've got lots of distributors out there. They buy the product directly from the suppliers. Well, in many cases, our industry has gotten so complex that Waldom offers this unique value proposition in that we make inventory available to all of the authorized distributors, so they all have access to it. And I'll comment in a minute of how we do that. It's a lot of inventory that the distributors would not typically have on their shelves. So, we speak today, I've got what's rapidly approaching $400 million worth of inventory. Now, anybody that's in distribution, wait a second, Don, you said you had a $400 million or a $200 million company and $400 million worth of inventory. Those inventory turns don't work. All right. Well, if I was at a distributor, I'd be in trouble if I was still at TTI with that much inventory and the sales being at that level. But this model is built on helping the industry with this long tail of part numbers that are not traditionally stocked. This business model really became, about 10 years ago, it shaped the way it is today as Waldom took over managing the stock rotation and scrap allowance programs for the suppliers with their authorized distributors. In our industry, that the distributors are given a small percentage of that they can return their inventory that they're not selling and replace it with inventory that is more sellable. So Waldom stepped in. We take that inventory back. We 100% quality inspect it. Anything that's broken pack, anything that's close may have an expiration date. Coming up within 6 months, we actually recycle that product. But we bring that back into inventory, and it's all sellable. We actually put our own 2-year warranty on it to address any concerns anybody has. We never get any warranty claims back.
Wow.
In the past couple of years, it's been less than $10,000 worth on a global basis that has even come back in warranty returns on all the products that we've sold. And most of those were still covered under supplier warranties. But we have all this inventory available to all the distributors. And what's excess for one distributor is not excess for the other or the industry. So when you make it available, easily available, you sell. What we sell today is somewhere between 65 and 80% of everything that we take back in this process. So, it's good for the industry. It's a product that if it was disposed of, then the customers wouldn't have access to it. But it's also there's an environmental play on it also. So the factories don't have to retool up and, expend carbon in order to manufacture products. We're able to get the most value out of what they've already manufactured. Now, the way we do this is we bring it back in, and the way I can have 400 million worth of inventory and be a $200 million company is because I don't pay for all of it. It comes back in. There is cost. Obviously, this inspection is not cheap to do. The freight to bring it back in, I pay for all of that. Then when I sell the product, I give the supplier back half of the value of that, where I sell it to their distributors. So in the past, they would have lost that money, and now we call it recovery. You'll hear us refer to it as stock recovery, but it's because the suppliers get to recover value out of the scrap or rotation allowance that they weren't able to do in the past. So that's really a big part of the business. I also, when it comes to this excess inventory, I take back excess inventory directly from the suppliers and put that on the shelf and make it available to all of their authorized distributors. Also, distributors, for lines I'm authorized for and they're authorized for, if they've got inventory above and beyond of what their scrap or stock rotation is, then I also bring that inventory back into my stock and make it available to all of the distributors.
That's really, Don, I didn't understand the part as far as what you were saying about the manufacturers helping them too with their stock recovery. That's actually pretty amazing. And if you look at now with the ESG and everything going on and all the environmental concerns, that's actually it's just a nice way of recycling product that is needed anyway. You're taking it back and giving it to somebody who needs it versus just disposing of it. That's brilliant. It's such a great concept.
Yeah, it is. It's a brilliant concept that the ownership put in place about 10 years ago. We've got relationships with some of the largest interconnect passive and electromechanical suppliers. TE and Molex are two of the largest, and they've been in place the longest. And I'll say, help them recover. Their piece is over 10 million a year that they get back. And you may ask, well, hey, the suppliers get that. Well, it helps them keep their cost down. So they're able to actually use that money in order to help the entire industry. And to your point, we know we've been keeping track of it. We went back and over the past 10 years, we've kept out 17,000 tons of electronic components that if they had just been scrapped would have ended up in landfills. And it's billions of pieces. We believe at some point we'll be able to tie that back to carbon emissions. The suppliers, if when they get to the point that they can share with the carbon that they emit when they manufacture the product, then we'll be able to actually provide those numbers to both the suppliers and the distributors of what the industry is doing in order to help. And that's going to become more and more important over the next 3 to 5 years as regulations come into play in order to limit carbon emissions. But it's a real play. It's a real environmental play.
Yeah, and it sounds like you'll be in their sustainability reports.
Ab- Absolutely. I've
Yeah,
already been with some of the CEOs of the largest companies in our industry. I've already had those conversations.
that's awesome.
And the distributors, you've got the large distributors, they all are starting to publish their sustainability. And this, I believe, will become a part of those reports over time.
That's really, Dawn, such an important service. It's really interesting and good to know that what you do. So if you had one message, here being here CEO of Waldom, what's that main message to people listening on behalf of Waldom? Is it we want to partner with all of our distributors, we want to be environmentally friendly? Like, what is your main message to the industry?
I think the main message is, it's at Waldom, we go in two directions. One, the distributors are our customers. So I've got a message for the distributors that, hey, look, understand the model, understand how you can leverage the model. I challenge the distributors and the ones who figure out to treat my inventory like it's an extension of their inventory and an extension of the factory, they win. They
Mm,
sell millions and millions of dollars worth of my product that they don't have on the shelf. Because obviously, if they have it on their own in their inventory, they're going to sell it out of their inventory. But in this world that we electronic component distribution today, breadth of inventory matters. All right. And I
mm,
said I had 400 million. I've got a very narrow number of lines. If you look at my line card, you'll see about 40 logos there. The truth is, about half those I have full engagements with or engagements. So in 20 lines, I've got a 250,000 unique part numbers with stock on the shelf. And I can compare it to my time at TTI. And, I've got breadth of product in TE and in Molex, and in Amphenol and in Yageo and in Eaton Cooper Buskman and in Honeywell and now in Samtec that I just signed. I've got
mm.
breadth of inventory because I've been taking this inventory back. I also supplement it with buying other inventory to fill it out as a true master distributor. But the breadth of my inventory is broader than the inventory I had, when I was at TTI or when I was at Arrow in those lines, because a lot of these parts, you just couldn't take the risk of inventorying them. So my message would be leverage the breadth of that inventory. You don't have to pay for it till you need it. I can ship same day. As a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier that part of the reason this model works so well and that we sell such a high percentage of what was once deemed excess by a distributor, we feed our inventory into the distributor's ERP systems to
Mm.
where it is an option. They know that. So they can see it, they can look at it and say, well, Waldom has, 100,000 pieces and it's an 18-week lead time if I buy it from the supplier. So they can come to me, I can ship it same day, they can have it next day, pretty much anywhere in the world. So it works out really nice. Now, my message to the suppliers would be, I'll say from a different angle, but the suppliers, think about what you're doing when it comes to giving scrap or stock rotations. What does it cost you to do that? Do you have the room to do it? I had a supplier come in and they had a large return coming back. They did not have the facility to actually take it back in. The
Wow.
suppliers are great at designing products, manufacturing products, and getting them to the distributors, but they really don't have robust processes to take them back. They don't have the quality controls to take it back because it's not a big part of their value prop or their business.
Right.
And we've put that in place. Our processes for taking this returned inventory actually are the basis of what the ECIA processes that are documented. They actually were built off the Waldom processes. We put these in place back in 2010, 2012, and ECIA used those as a basis when they published in 2014. And those processes are still good today.
Wow, that's pretty, you have a strong value proposition in the industry is what you just reviewed with us, Don. So I'm hoping that people listening will understand and utilize you, suppliers and also distributors, you of anybody know what the challenges are, especially in distribution right now with supply chain and all that. So moving beyond that, um, let's get into a little bit about you as a leader. Okay, so we understand the value proposition of Waldom. You've described that very clearly with a great message. What is it that what you bring to this table now? What's your impact? What do you want to accomplish here for yourself personally, but also Waldom, and your next step beyond this is retirement? What is this impact you're hoping to leave on the industry?
Well, if you look at it, I mean, again, this value prop for this business is good. So I think part of what I hope to accomplish is to make sure that the industry does understand that it does bring value. It's not competing with distributors. It's not competing with suppliers. It is just another, I'll say, process in our industry that I think helps, all parties involved, helps the supplier, helps the distributor, helps the end customer by having that product available. So I think part of my leadership is to convince, not only the Walden people of how good of a value prop it is, as well as the entire industry. I've got aspirations. I've looked at it, and I do believe this business will very soon be a $500 million business, and it's got the opportunity to be in excess of $1 billion business. So that's what I'm, I'll say from a work perspective, shooting for in order to build the business up to those kind of levels for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously there's a accomplishment of being able to do it. The opportunity's there. It can be done. The industry needs it. It adds enough value for a lot of players in the industry to get it there. But it also opens up, that's a lot of jobs in the industry. And we're a global business. I've got locations in all three major regions of the world, and I've got lots of people everywhere. I want if we take it up to $1 billion, that's a lot more jobs that are out there. It gives a lot of people the opportunity in order to work or to move up and to get promoted and to develop themselves. We take a $200 million business and turn it into $1 billion. It's going to take a lot better leader than me in order to sustain it after that. So my hope is that we can give those opportunities and develop the people in order to fill those roles and give them the same type of opportunities I've had in my career.
Wow, I love that goal, $1 billion. So I am so excited to watch you do this, Don, because I know you can. And that's pretty amazing. Okay, so let me ask you this next question. That's a pretty lofty goal. And obviously, we have faith in you that you can accomplish that, Don, but that's a lot of tough decisions along the way. That's just a lot that goes into that. When you're faced with tough decisions and you're faced with so many different problem solving situations, what do you turn to as a leader? How do you then regroup and make your decisions from a leadership perspective with so many people who listen and look to leaders like you? What does Don do, right? What does that look like for you when you're facing tough decisions?
Well, I always go back to where it's no different than the decisions that have been made. They do start from the people perspective, but my answer is going to, I'll say, maybe go in a little different direction, because I've made some hard decisions, throughout my career to where it's impacted individuals, to where I've had a business has outgrown an individual and their experience or their leadership, and I've had to displace them. I've had to remove them. But I always go back in, and what I tell myself is I look at the big picture and say, what's the good of the whole? It's back to an ethics course back from my college days. Looking at it as sometimes you have to make a decision that for an individual or a small group may not look like it's the best decision, but for the good of the organization or the greater good, the greater number of people. And I tend to always end up back there. So in that, that's worked fairly well for me. I'm sure there's some people that were in the smaller group or the individual that probably don't appreciate it. But it seems to have made the businesses stronger, seemed to make the people who are there stronger. So I think that's how I get through and make some of the hard decisions. I think a lot of it in any kind of business, in any kind of leadership role, it's the discipline to make the decisions in the first place. I think indecisiveness, I've seen it derail careers of some really intelligent and good people, really likable people. But if you get to a point where your organization or your people um, are looking for you to make a decision and you don't make it in a timely fashion, that derails you and you end up losing the respect and confidence of the organization. So I think decisiveness and looking out for the greater good have been the guiding principles for me in my leadership style.
Well, that's really good insight. The other part of this too is I don't know that everybody always understands or appreciates what you just said and how much weight falls on somebody's shoulders in your position. So, how do you refresh, Don? Because there's a lot of rocking and rolling, a lot of good, but there's a lot of challenge. Growth to me is like some of the toughest times. It seems so great, right? It's like, oh, but we'll watch you on the sidelines go up. But as you're going up, it's breaking through barriers and it's challenging. So, how do you refresh as a leader? What do you do to refresh yourself and regroup for every week that's in store?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it, I do compartmentalize. There's
Okay.
aspects to where I'm able to do that, and that's something that I don't know how I've been able to do that, but I break it up and I am able to separate when it's been a really bad day or something's gone terribly wrong. I'm able to separate that from other parts of my life or other parts of even the business. I'm, not as young as I once was, but I still stay very active. I get up and do something. I rode 14 miles on a Peloton bike this morning. And I did that before the sun was up, but that keeps me, that tends to help reset me quite a bit. I'm going to go public with it now. This will keep me in line for it. A couple years ago, pre-COVID, last trip my wife and I took, we hiked up to Mount Everest, up to base camp. We did not climb it. We just hiked up. Pretty grueling endeavor. 7 days, lost 10 pounds during that. Well, I've just signed up. We are actually in late May, early June. We're going to climb Kilimanjaro. All
Oh,
right. So that is the plan at this point. I'm committed to it. So, you know, uh, so that's the next thing. So I think some of those other personal challenges, the whole accomplishment of doing it, it's less about getting there and it's more about the journey to get there. So we've got that plan. So I use that as a way in order to break away from the business, and you have to disconnect a little bit when you do that. So that's
yes.
how I keep, and I'll say keep the stress under control.
You know what I love about that too? It's something you and your wife are doing together. That's a pretty lofty goal in itself as well. You have some
Mhm.
pretty high aspirations, Don. But the fact that you can do that with your wife is probably pretty bonding, and
Mhm.
and so that's pretty cool. I like that.
That's very cool. That's part of what makes it special. Like I said, going up to Everest, it's one thing to go up there, but to be able to go with it. And the truth is, she's the one dragging me up. She's actually better at it than I am. And so she'll probably have to drag me up Kilimanjaro too, but hopefully we drag each other up.
I love that. Okay, so now you're motivating me. I was just like contemplating doing another because I tend to do half marathons. I don't do full, just halves. But like, well, I should just go ahead and sign up. So that's nothing compared to what you're doing, but get myself going again. Okay, so Don, the other thing I want to ask you, I'm asking this because me being in the industry, as far as running women electronics at this stage, I'm always trying to look and see what's going on and who's doing what and staying abreast all the industry stuff and where are we adding value, right? What's changing and evolving? So who are your influencers that you pay attention to and where do you get your information?
Oh, yeah, it's from a lot of different places. Obviously, there's a lot of really intelligent, influential people in our industry. You know, the leadership of organizations like yours, like you, and Monica, and the rest of the team there, of what you guys have created in a very short period of time. So I watch and I keep abreast from industry associations like Women Electronics, like ECIA. ERA's got a pretty big influence. ERA has done a great job. For me personally, the rep community has always been helped in my success, throughout my career, and they've got a lot of influence. So I use a lot of people in what I consider those associations. But if you look across the industry, from the distributors, I mean, my former company, and Phil Gallagher running Avnet, or Dave Doherty running DigiKey. You can go right down the line. These are all people that we've grown up in the industry with.
Yes.
And I consider them, more than business colleagues, as people that for the past 30 years, we've, seen each other on a regular basis. So that's where I tap and go and keep up with. Social media helps stay in tune. LinkedIn, if you looked at any company I've been involved with, and LinkedIn is a good way that I use in order to stay connected to the industry, and to the I'll say the bigger world than electronic component industry. You got people like Michael Knight, who has worked with me for quite a while, that I consider somebody that I do tap and watch, and he's pointing me down the direction from a technology standpoint, in a direction that I didn't see it going. So there's a lot of really good people in our industry. So I can't say that any have been signed up to be my mentor officially, but that's one thing that I'll say, that Women in Electronics, the value that has been provided. I've talked to a number of people who have gone through or are involved today in the mentor program that you guys. That's a great way, to me, in order to gain knowledge and experience and relationships in the industry, to help you, I'll say, get through where you're at today, and to help you with that career path.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dawn. And since you mentioned that, you are joining our council now. I'm so excited, by the way, that you're going to be on our council. We have a meeting coming up this quarter. I'm just very excited about that. And really, we had that prior experience at your prior organization. And now when you came to Waldom, it was such a good day for me to get the email from you to say, hey, I'm over here now and I want to sign up for Women Electronics. That just really warmed my heart so much. So what is it, why do you feel, as a leader in what you're doing now, that this is even important to have this alignment?
Well, if you'll remember from the first meeting, the meetings that we had when I was at TTI, my first question is, what is your value proposition?
Yeah.
All right. And you guys, it was still new.
Yeah.
And you guys, over the next weeks and months, began to articulate a very good value proposition. It was first words, then it came in with action. I have seen results. I just mentioned the mentor program. I mean, I see that in action as we speak today. Prior to starting this call, I told you that from the luncheon that was at the ECIA Executive Conference, it influenced our company to change our maternity and paternity leave policy, because I was caught flat-footed because it was brought up as a topic, and I had to ask somebody what our policy was, and it was subpar. So we made that change and rolled it out. So I look at it that I think it's back to that original comment I made. When you prove to me you've got a value prop that's adding value to our industry, then I want to be a part of it. And I want the companies that I'm with, I want this company to be involved with it, which we are now. I've got people that are involved in different aspects of it, and we'll continue to grow that. I don't know how many members we have now, but I know it's a lot more than it was when I arrived here. But they see value in it. So that's what it all boils back to. And I'm excited to be part of your council.
Well, I want to tell you from, you've now become one of my mentors, Don, because really you pushed us in a way when we first got started. And this is a message, for people to understand that, sometimes it's the people who push you the most, who elevate you the most. So I remember having those conversations, Don. It was pretty tough. And I was like, well, what do you mean? But we had not articulated it well. We hadn't really proven the value proposition, and you really challenged us. And I really appreciate that about you, because that really, ever since you challenged us in that regard, and really just to help elevate us and understand what people weren't seeing, right? That really made a big difference for us, because we put a lot of time and effort into, wait a minute, let's regroup at the table, because we have not communicated the way we thought we were. So anyway, that was a game changer for us. So I always appreciate you for that, Don, for pushing us in that regard. And now you're a sponsor on behalf of Waldom. So super grateful for that.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be part of it. Like I said, it's always you want to be part of the successful organizations, and you guys, for what you've accomplished in a short period of time. Most organizations would not be where you're at this quick. I don't know what your membership is. I know your sponsorship list is considerably longer
Yes.
than it was. And so you've done a great job. So obviously the value prop is resonating with the industry.
Well, we've doubled our membership every year, so we have some lofty goals as well. We ended 2022 with about 750. This year, we want to have about 1,500. So we have our goals as well. And one last thing I want to talk to you about, Don, before this has gone so fast, but I want to ask you one more question. And, that is, you as a person, what makes you, Don Akery, happy? I feel like we look at our leaders a lot of times as they're like these robots. They're just off doing their thing, and they live these lives. And what is it that makes you tick and makes you happy?
Yeah, and that's a hard one. That's probably the hardest question that because I don't get asked that one very often. I am happy. I'm happy in a lot of aspects. And I've had a few minutes because you gave me a warning that you were going to throw that one at me somewhere in this podcast. So I look at it that I think part of what makes me happy in all aspects of my life, be it my career, be it my personal life, it's slowing down long enough that it's the path to get there. It's not about getting the goal of where you're trying to get. It's not about the $500 million or the $1 billion to grow this business. It's what happens along the way. And it's slowing down long enough in order to look at it and say, you know what, that was good. That's a step in order to get that direction. And to me, that's more rewarding. In the personal life, it's the same thing. It's the thing about, going on the record saying, hey, I'm going to go climb a mountain. And it's like, uh-oh, now that I've gone public with that, then I guess I better do it. It's, and if I start posting it on social media that I'm going up, then I have to make it. So it's a matter of it, but it's the path along the way. And I've been lucky. Like I said, I say that I've got a storybook life. I mean, my wife is my high school sweetheart, and we've known each other and grown up together in the world as well as my career. I got lucky. I had friends that were in the electronic component industry, and I got into it. They kept saying, you'll be good at this, you'll be good at this. Well, I didn't know what it was. I had no clue what I was selling in the beginning, but it's worked out really nicely for me. So I've had a storybook life, and so it's been really, really fun in order to reflect on that path. And hopefully part of what we do at Walden, part of what you're doing there will help and help show that path to a lot of other people.
Yes, and I will tell you, I'm excited to think of you going home. Okay, honey, announcements out. We're going.
Yeah. I'm more scared than she is. So
yeah. So, and really, just to conclude this interview, what makes me happy is moments like this. Like, I love interviewing the leaders of our industry, because I truly believe in my soul that we are in a very pivotal time in our industry. The leaders here have gotten us through people like you were at TTI at the time, but challenge after challenge, COVID and weather and all kinds of stuff going on. We have the most fantastic leaders, but what this group of leaders will accomplish is literally going to be a moment in history. And so I really am so appreciative to be able to talk to leaders like you, to get your insights and to draw inspiration, not only for myself, but for others listening who don't get to talk to Don Akery every day, but get to see him as a human being. So thank you for being here, Don.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and Happy New Year to you and everybody.
Yes. All right, Don. Well, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you another time.
All right, thanks.